Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're tackling something that is just deeply universal. We're talking about those hidden, paralyzing insecurities we all carry around. We're going to literally map our way out of a mental trap that holds almost every single one of us back. Because what we're really digging into here is curing a fundamental disease of the mind, that heavy, exhausting burden of shame. It's a fascinating concept, and the source material we are breaking down today completely reframes how we should view our own past mistakes. So, let's just get right to it.
You have the need for love from total strangers. You know, that quote right there from Dr. Phil perfectly diagnoses the absolute core of the disease holding us back. It's this desperate, unending need for external validation. The source material shares this brilliant little anecdote where the speaker was completely obsessing over YouTube comments. The positive comments made him feel on top of the world, and the negative ones, they just crushed him. And Dr. Phil gave him this exact piece of advice. He pointed out that if you leave the door open for the positive comments to validate you, well, you're leaving that exact same door wide open for the negative ones to completely destroy you. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that your definition of you has to come from you. It can never, ever be defined by total strangers.
And honestly, that need for external validation breeds a pretty stark reality. Think about this. On their deathbeds, 99.9% of people deeply regret the heavy burden of concealed shame they carried their entire lives. We hide things because, let's face it, we are terrified of being judged. But the wild irony here is, if you took the deepest, darkest insecurities of 100 different people, threw them all into a hat, and then pulled them out to read, you'd be totally confused. You'd probably think someone just paraphrased your own inner thoughts 100 times over. We are all hiding the exact same stuff, totally terrified that we are somehow uniquely broken. So, where exactly do we seek comfort from all this hidden shame? Let's get into section 1, mapping your dopamine sources.
Try this quick exercise with me right now. Imagine drawing a basketball court on a piece of blank paper, and you put yourself right in the center circle. On one side of the court, you map out your positive sources of dopamine. You know, spending time with family, going on walks, hitting the gym, going for a run. But on the other side, you list the negative escapes: cigarettes, alcohol, mindless doom scrolling on your phone. Now, if you had to assign a percentage to each side, adding up to 100, where is your dopamine really coming from? The source material makes a really bold point here. If most of us mapped our habits honestly like this, we would be deeply ashamed to show the final results to anyone else. And that realization builds right into section 2, the institutionalized shame trap.
Because, get this, for the last 70 years, the advertising and marketing industries have quite literally institutionalized shame. They weaponize cognitive dissonance just to drive your behavior, and they have two main goals to pull this off. First, they have to convince you that you simply aren't enough yet. And second, they force separation by getting you to constantly, endlessly compare yourself to others. It's a deliberate strategy designed to make you feel like an isolated island, completely cut off from everyone else around you. And if you think about it, taking that feeling of complete separation to its absolute extreme, that's essentially the psychological profile of a psychopath. It is a highly dangerous trap. To make that trap actually work, manipulators desperately need you to confuse fleeting pleasure with genuine, enduring happiness. And we've been exposed to this conditioning since we were little kids. You might think, oh man, if I just buy this incredible Ferrari, I will finally be happy. But 6 months later, you feel absolutely nothing. And you're sitting there wondering why you aren't excited anymore. It's because pleasure is just a temporary fix. Happiness, that's an internal, long-lasting state that literally cannot be bought. So, to break out of this trap, we have to completely change how we view our own history. You can own your past with shame, fear, and guilt, or you can just own it as a concrete fact. You really have to recognize that holding on to past shame is entirely useless. You are in charge of the future. You are not in charge of the past right now. You have to be able to look at your past mistakes, say, yep, okay, that's just what happened, and I'll definitely work to make it better in the future, and then you just move on.
Now, doing that requires a massive paradigm shift, which brings us to section 3, radical delusional self-forgiveness.
This right here is perhaps the most profound concept we'll explore in this whole explainer: delusional self-forgiveness. You must forgive yourself for all those embarrassing things your 12-year-old self did so completely and so aggressively that it actually feels a little bit crazy. You have to get to a point where you look back at your most cringeworthy moments, and instead of feeling that awful pit in your stomach, you just find it hilarious. If you can achieve this level of radical forgiveness, it just deletes the shame that holds you back. And the result? It will instantly 10x your ability to stay present in the moment. The philosopher Alan Watts framed it so perfectly. He said, Most of man's memory comes from taking very seriously what God made for fun. I mean, wow. If you can achieve that delusional self-forgiveness, life literally stops being this terrifying prison of fear and judgment. Instead, you start treating life the way it was always meant to be treated, like a really enjoyable game. As long as you have great intentions and you aren't out there hurting anybody, you are allowed to just enjoy the moment. You should honestly make a poster of this idea and put it on your wall. Life is supposed to be fun.
And once we've forgiven our past, we reach Section 4, unzipping the ego costume. You know, so many of us are out there chasing the absolute wrong kind of freedom. We want location freedom or financial freedom, but the whole time, we are completely trapped inside what the source material calls the ego costume. We're just overwhelmed by data and totally paralyzed by the fear of judgment. But if you compare that exhausting ego costume to the deliberate, content life of your authentic self, the true meaning of success becomes incredibly obvious. True success is unzipping that heavy ego costume and moving toward calm, slow, and highly intentional living. So, how do we actually build that intentional life? By changing how we visualize. Because the biggest mistake most of us make is spending all day long predicting terrible future outcomes. Instead, we must deliberately visualize success. Think about Navy SEALs, the Blue Angels, top-tier surgeons doing grueling 15-hour procedures, Formula One drivers. The people at the absolute pinnacle of their fields do not accidentally succeed. They deliberately, purposefully visualize the exact results they want. And we need to apply that exact same training to our own daily lives.
Pulling all these threads together brings us to the final crossroad in Section 5, choosing love over fear. 365. The sheer magnitude of this number is staggering. If you read ancient texts from all over the world, I'm talking the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, the Nag Hammadi, you'll find one major repeating theme. In the King James Version of the Bible alone, the phrase, "do not fear," appears exactly 365 times. It's practically screaming at us. This perfectly proves just how universal and how timeless this human struggle with fear truly is. Almost all spiritual texts agree that at our absolute core, humans really only operate on two basic emotions, fear and love. If you're trapped by shame, hiding from judgment, and desperately needing validation, well, you are living completely in fear. Having a truly good life means making a conscious, daily effort to actively migrate out of that fear zone and step right into an open-hearted, delusionally self-forgiving love for whatever is happening right now. Which brings us to the ultimate question. You have to remember, you are not trapped by your past. You are only trapped by the shame you are actively choosing to carry from it. So ask yourself this. If the ego costume is the only thing keeping you from actually enjoying the game of life, what are you so afraid will happen if you finally unzip it?